Well, Kerry, we get through the first round of the playoffs, and now we're heading into the second round, and so far it seems like it's just flying by. I mean, we had our playoff show, and then boom, first round's here, and now we're already looking at second round. With that, there were some interesting games from Class 1A to 3A, but the majority of the games went exactly the way they should have, with the exception of the big one that's really got a lot of people alarmed, as you heard Steve Susie talking earlier tonight, in fact, on his podcast, with the Orangeville win over Chicago Hope. And I guess the big thing that a lot of people were surprised by is the simple fact of not that Orangeville won per se, but the way that they won. The big win, 32-0, especially considering that Hope had played a Thornwood team that had made the 7A playoffs. They had played a Marengo team and lost by 2 scores, and Marengo is still playing in the 4A playoffs. And here you have Hope losing to Orangeville 32-0. And Orangeville had the opportunity for another touchdown in that game, but it was called back on penalty. And they probably could have put a few more points up on the board had they not just wanted to keep running the ball.
I had hope in Orangeville, and some of us didn't.
Taking a look at some other games, one that really stuck out came down in Class 1A South, where Greenfield Northwestern and Brown County played, and that was a matchup that was featured in Week 9, where Greenfield Northwestern won that game 14-7, and then here in the first round of the playoffs, they get the win 22-21 after Brown County was up 21-20. And there was a pass play from the end zone for a 30-yard completion, but there was a holding penalty on the play in the end zone, which resulted in a safety that went in favor of Greenfield Northwestern. It happened to be the differential in that game. That's crazy.
Like I said, I went back and forth, and I guess, it could have gone either way.
Yeah, it really could have. Another good one obviously comes back to the NUIC, where Fieldcrest and West Carroll played to a very close game, almost upset material there, where West Carroll got out to an 8-0 lead, held an 8-6 lead as they entered the fourth quarter, and then Fieldcrest capitalized on some West Carroll mistakes to put that game away 20-8, but that really made the 2A field take a look at, wow, is Fieldcrest that strong, or is West Carroll that good?
I think West Carroll's that good. I mean, I think we saw it a lot this year with, like, their game against Forreston. I don't know. I know you said it. You made the post. This is a pretty bad conference.
Yeah.
I edited that.
Well, good. I liked it the way I had it. But anyway, as we look into...
Family show.
Yes. As we look into round 2, obviously there's some big matchups. One of those big matchups is going to be in Forreston on Saturday night at 5 o'clock, where they're going to play host to the top seed Annawan-Wethersfield. I know a lot of people around the state are looking at that one. Another big one is here in the NUIC again with Aquin and Stockton. And those that don't remember, this is a second round rematch from just 2 years ago. Obviously, this is the first time these two have met in the playoffs since that time. The last time it happened, Stockton won the regular season, Aquin won in the playoffs. So can the roles be reversed this time around? We'll talk about that later. And some other good ones are Argenta, Oriana, and Carrollton down in the South bracket as well, as that game could be a really close one there. Taking a look at Class 2A, Newman and GCMS meet up, so that's going to be a very interesting game there. Clifton Central and Mercer County could be intriguing. Bismarck, Henning, and Nashville as well are some matchups to take a look at. And then Maroa Forsyth versus Auburn, as that's a rematch from earlier this year as well. Another big matchup in 2A South is that in a rematch also. St. Teresa and Tuscola, as they played earlier this year, where St. Teresa won that game by 2 scores. And then if you take a look at Class 3A, I know a lot of people down in the South bracket are looking at the Beardstown and Quincy Notre Dame game, as that really looks to be a toss-up type game right there as well. Obviously, the favorite in the 3A South is Williamsville, so all people are looking at that one. But another game that really alarmed people was that of undefeated Vandalia, who squeezed out a 7-0 win over Verdon North Mac in the first round. And they now play Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is 9-1, but the thing with the Golden Aces is that they play a lot of Indiana teams, so a lot of people don't really know how they're going to measure up here. But in that matchup, I do think Mount Carmel will get that one. And of course, then we have our game, Byron versus Du-Pec. Obviously, a lot of people are really excited for the Du-Pec program, as they should be, getting their first playoff win and their first playoff appearance as a co-op. They head to Byron, which will be a tough competition for Du-Pec, as Byron is one of the favorites to get to the Calv this year. But we'll see how that plays out. And then Princeton and Hall, as that is a Three Rivers conference matchup there as well. Princeton won that game earlier this year, so we'll see how that plays out also. But we'll start breaking down our NUIC games right now. We head to Orangeville, where the number 10 seeded Orangeville Broncos are going to play host to the Lena Winslow Panthers, who come in with the number 2 seed. Lena Winslow improves to 10-0 with their 46-8 win over Aurora Christian in round 1, where Orangeville improves to 7-3 after they beat Chicago Hope 32-0. Lena Winslow is making their 17th trip to the second round, while Orangeville is making their 8th trip to the second round in school history. This is the first time since 2001 that Orangeville will host a playoff game. The last time this happened was back in 2001 when they played host to Deer Creek Mackinac, and they won that game before moving on to the second round, where they eventually lost to Lexington. And obviously, these two teams have played earlier this year. Their matchup came in Week 6, where Lena Winslow won that game 46-7. Orangeville is one of just 3 teams that have not faced a running clock against Lena Winslow this year. The other 2 are Stockton and Du-Pec as well. And as you remember, in the NUIC North, those 3 teams all had played with each other. So this has a little bit of intrigue to it, as you know, a lot of people are looking at Lena Winslow as being potentially one of the best Class 1A teams of all time, provided that they continue to play out, win out, and get the job done. On the other hand, you know, that win for Orangeville can really set the tone, as Chicago Hope was one of those teams that people thought would give Lena Winslow a run for their money, potentially, because of the level of competition that they had played, and Orangeville took it to them.
They did, and some of us had faith and some of us didn't, but that's a story for another day. I know we talked about this a little bit. I do think this game is going to be closer than the 46-7 that it was earlier in this year.
I would agree with that assessment. One of those things that you do get when you face a team for the second time around is you have that familiarity with them. You tend to see lopsided scores get turned around at times where it's a lot closer, a la Forreston and Dakota last year, where Forreston won by 20 and then only beat Dakota by 2 the second time, or Lena Winslow and Forreston, where they literally flipped around. Lena won by 20 and then Forreston won by 6. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that Lena Winslow has to come ready to play, because Orangeville is chomping at the bit. They want to give Lena Winslow a good game. Obviously, everybody around the state knows that the Panthers are the team to beat, and what the Panthers need to understand is that they're going to get everybody's best shot, because the target is on their back. And they can't just show up after they beat Aurora Christian and say, okay, we got this in the bag, because they don't. I mean, you got some good teams out here that are ready to go, and they're not the same teams that they faced earlier in the year. And after facing Lena Winslow, they know what to expect. And taking a look at where Lena Winslow is in the bracket, obviously it's an NUIC conference tournament right there. So outside of Aquin, the other two teams have already played Lena, and they already know what to expect. They know where to go. And I mean, even Aquin had played Lena Winslow just 2 seasons ago in the quarterfinals. So, there's not a whole lot there to say, but I do like the Panthers in this game, but I agree. I think it'll be closer than what people think. We move to John O'Boyle Field, where the Stockton Blackhawks come in with the 11th seed, and they're going to play host to the Aquin Bulldogs, who come in with the number 3 seed. And although these two teams are now on different sides of the division, they're very familiar with each other as they've been longtime rivals. Last week, Aquin beat Fulton 55-38, where Stockton beat Princeville 20-7. Aquin is making their 16th trip to the second round, and Stockton is making their 20th trip to the second round. So you can see there that these two teams have a lot of playoff success between the two. This is their 4th meeting in the playoffs, where Aquin has gone 3-0 in their previous matchups. They met in the second round back in 2017, as we stated in our introduction, where Aquin won that game 21-14. And earlier this year, they met in week 2, where Aquin won that game 40-22. One of the things I keep bringing up, and it's kind of cliche, but to me it seems like Aquin's missing that killer instinct. Like, they're good enough to win these games. You can get them in a shootout, and they're going to come out on top. But their defense, we've seen sparks of their defense where they've played lights out, but they don't contain it for an entire 4 quarters. It would be nice to see Aquin be able to do that. One of the things for the Blackhawks in this game, they're healthy now. They have everybody back. They were missing some guys the first time that they played Aquin back in week 2. And with that, there's going to be a different level of line play there that was missing in that first matchup back in week 2. And I think that now that you get more to a little bit of a level playing field, I think the lines can match up with each other. And now it's going to come down to, can we control Will Gustafson on the Blackhawks defense? And can the Bulldog defense control Jason Herman? Can they stop that? Because if they can stop Herman, you're going to force Stockton to do something that they're not wanting to do, and that's throw the ball on a regular basis. Now, granted, Stockton can throw the ball, but they've been rather inconsistent at it throughout the course of the year to date. That's not saying that it can't become consistent, but this isn't the Hayden Fox era Blackhawks here, So you're missing that dynamic. And since Coach Snyder's taken over, they've come back more to that double wing type level team. So, like you said, I like Aquin in this game still, but I think this game's going to be much closer than the first time around. One of the more dynamic matchups in round 1 here in Class 1A is that of Annawan-Wethersfield traveling to Forreston to take on the Cardinals. Cardinals come in with the number 9 seed and an 8-2 mark, where Annawan-Wethersfield has that top seed. They come in undefeated at 10-0. And last week, Annawan-Wethersfield beat Lewistown 52-0, where Forreston beat Marquette 42-7. Annawan-Wethersfield is making their 8th trip to the second round, whereas Forreston is making their 14th trip. And this is the first time that these two teams have met. And if you take a look at some of their scoring differentials, Annawan-Wethersfield's averaging 41 points per game on offense and giving up 8 points per game on defense, whereas Forreston is averaging 37 on offense, but they're giving up 19 points on defense. Obviously, we've seen Forreston have some issues early in the season, but late in the season, where they've had some close games. They took a couple losses and then another close game. So you take a look at really their last 4 weeks. They went from a 2-point win to a blowout loss to a 6-point loss to a 2-point win. And now they rebound back. They're healthy, back to full pace, and they put a running clock on Ottawa Marquette in a game that people thought might be a lot closer than what it turned out to be. You take a look at the Titans. They have a passing offense. They run the spread offense where Forreston is running that double wing offense that we've come accustomed to seeing. And, you take a look at what Annawan-Wethersfield can do, and that's the play of the quarterback in Quagliano. He's a very good quarterback, been starting since his freshman year when he took over for an injured quarterback. And, he's not unfamiliar with this type of territory. Unfortunately for him, they beat Orangeville 2 years ago and then lost in the second round. Last year they took their thumping. Well, it wasn't even a thumping. It was a good game with Aurora Christian. And they really matched up well with Aurora Christian in that realm. Lost, I think it was 30-26. But now you have Forreston, so you're coming off a big win over Lewistown, who really has not had much playoff success outside of the 2010 year when they got to the semifinals before losing to Lena Winslow. And you have the defending state champs now, and you're coming to them. A lot of people see Annawan-Wethersfield as a big-time player to get to the state championship game, or at least to the semifinals. Forreston has the pedigree of, we've been there, we've done that, and they've done it consistently over the past 5 seasons. Line play, in my opinion, is what's going to be the difference maker in this game, and I feel that Forreston has the stronger line play. Granted, Annawan-Wethersfield's really exciting. They remind you of an Aquin or Stockton just a couple years ago, where they have a lot of great skill players, and they can light up a scoreboard in a hurry. But I think if Forreston can get their ground game going, pound the ball, do what Forreston does regularly, control the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball to put pressure on Quagliano, in my opinion, that's going to make Forreston that much more favorable in this matchup. And likewise, I like the Cardinals in this game. We move into Class 3A, where the Du-Pec Rivermen are going to travel to Byron. Byron comes in at a 9-1 mark with the number 2 seed, and Du-Pec has the 7-3 mark with the number 7 seed. Last week, Du-Pec beat Chicago Harlan 44-12, and Byron beat Rock Island Alleman 50-28. Obviously, Du-Pec's making their first trip to the second round in the playoffs. It's their first trip ever to the playoffs as a co-op, as they just started 3 seasons ago, where Byron is making their 21st trip to the second round in their playoff history. Obviously, this is the first time these two teams have met, so there's a lot of excitement around what these two teams can play. Taking a look at Du-Pec's recent games, Week 9 they played Lena Winslow. In my opinion, and probably quite a few people's opinions that have seen both Lena Winslow and Byron play, Lena Winslow comes the closest to what Byron's talent is. Obviously, Byron is the runner-up from just a season ago in Class 3A. So you saw a great effort by Du-Pec in Week 9 when they played Lena Winslow. Can they bring that type of level of play forward against Byron? And if so, can that become somewhat of a closer game? Those are kind of the questions that we ask on what they can do. One of the similarities between Byron and Lena Winslow is that they too have a Division I recruit that is going to Iowa and Tyler Ellsbury. So you have that playing in their factor. And if I'm Du-Pec, I'm trying to see what we can do to help keep him at bay for what you want to do offensively. Obviously, one thing Du-Pec did not do very well was run the ball against Lena Winslow, and they're going to be faced with that same type of challenge when they play the Tigers. So they got to figure something out in order to get the ball moving from the backfield, along with being able to pass. But I feel this is a game that Du-Pec is really going to have to stand out in. I mean, obviously they're going to have to bring the energy. They're going to have to match the intensity and bring the same physical presence. But at the same time, they're going to have to play an almost perfect game to stay in this game and give themselves an opportunity for the win. Myself, and I know that I have a strong opinion in this, but I find that Lena Winslow can easily match up with Byron. And if I feel that way, then I feel Du-Pec can give Byron at least a scare in this game, much like they did to Lena Winslow the first time around when they were down 24-0, and all of a sudden they made it a 24-14 game. Obviously, it got Lena Winslow thinking, we better start playing here. And that's the same type of level I can see Du-Pec doing to Byron here. But I agree with you, Carrie. I think that Byron's just got a little too much for Du-Pec. But, hey, prove us wrong. We're cheering for you. That gives you a look at our 6 NUIC teams that remain in the playoffs. Obviously, we got a lot of big games coming up here as we start to get closer to DeKalb, and the games start to get a lot tighter as we move forward. Lots of good games though, Carrie. We got quite a few coming up, and obviously the game times for this week are all at 1 o'clock with the exception of the Forreston versus Annawan-Wethersfield game, so that's a 5 o'clock game. So that gives plenty of people an opportunity to pick up 2 games. If they want to pick up a half of one and a half another, that gives them that opportunity as well, and then potentially the third game if they decide to go down to Forreston as well. So, you know, that's the exciting part about playoff football, being able to grab a couple games if where and when possible. Obviously, we're going to keep rooting for the NUIC as we move forward in the playoffs. As you can see, we're guaranteed at least one team into the semifinals with Lena Winslow, Orangeville, Aquin, and Stockton all in the same quadrant, all winning their first round game. So now it's a NUIC battle to get to that semifinal. And then, of course, we got Forreston in the top half of the bracket as the lone representative up there. So as provided they can keep winning, and if they were, that would give their fourth straight semifinal appearance if that were to happen. So obviously they got some tough challenges in the way. One this week with Annawan-Wethersfield, and of course you still got Morrison lurking over there as well that have somewhat been quiet with the competition that they have coming forward, but it's soon to get very abruptive for the Mustangs there. Anyhow, get out to the game, support your team, support your communities. As always, root for the NUIC.